Welcome back to CEO Money. Kate Delaney in for Michael Yorba. If you've just tuned in, you're driving around Dallas, or you're listening in your office, or perhaps through your iPhone or some other mechanism, and you're saying, that doesn't sound like Yorba. I'm here all week. He's doing something exciting. I think he's out on the slope somewhere. Joining us now on the show to close us out, Ronald Surz joins us. He's the president of PPCA Inc. Ronald, and what that company does is, we're talking about Target Date Solutions, and it's in San Clemente, California. Target Date Solutions developed they patented the safe landing glide path. It was so interesting. I looked at that this morning after I was getting over the Super Bowl, and here's what you need to know, folks. It's the basis for the smart funds. And Ronald, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Good to meet you.
So let's flesh that out a little bit more. I didn't give you a truly fabulous introduction. This is really important stuff. So people listening that are just hearing that, and they hear that you're the president of PPCA Inc. If I were to say, just boil it down for us in a nutshell, in layman's terms, what do you do so well that has attracted business to you?
Yeah, well, one of the things you mentioned, I've been involved with target date funds since 2007. And your listeners probably know what they are, but they've become the big deal in 401k plans. And they're designed to be more aggressive for young employees. Well, first of all, let me back up one step. They become really popular because they've become the default option in 401k plans. So when participants don't make an election, the employer needs to invest their contributions somehow. And the most popular choice has become target date funds. And what they do is they're fairly aggressive for younger employees, and then as the employee gets closer to retirement, they get more and more defensive. And in 2006, the Pension Protection Act designated 3 qualified default investment alternatives. One of those is target date funds, the other is balanced, and the third is a managed account. The target date fund is by far the most popular. But at that time, there wasn't really much in target date funds. They were used primarily for college savings plans. But since then, target date funds have grown from essentially zero to more than $1.5 trillion. So that represents about a fourth of 401k assets right now. But the forecast is that they'll become more than half within the next 3 to 4 years. So it's become a really growth area. And I should maybe stop there. And I'd like to tell you my design, but I just wanted to make sure the listeners know what target date funds are.
Yeah, we want to talk about that in a second, but I want to ask you this. More than half, you're saying $1.5 trillion. What do you attribute that to? Because now people understand the target date funds more, or is it also because there are more entrepreneurs who are leaning toward those kinds of plans?
And I think the plan sponsors have seen them as the better choice among the three. And frankly, the really better choice is what's called a managed account. And that's where an advisor works side by side with the plan participant. But the version of managed accounts that can actually be effectively offered to other than the executives of the company is basically what's come to be known as a robo-advisor. So there are a couple of firms that you'd ask your employee to go online and work through some sort of help to decide on how much risk you want to take. And that just really hasn't worked out well in 401k plans. The robos are catching on in other areas, but not so much in 401k plans. So it's become the place where assets are invested on behalf of those who can't or won't make an election.
There you go. So tell us about the building of that and how you build it.
Sure. So there's a lot been written, and there are probably 30 to 40 target date fund offerings out there. The biggest by far is Vanguard, then Fidelity, and then T. Rowe Price. And I will interject this before I forget. One of the problems in this space is the plan sponsors are really not properly executing their duty of care. They're breaching their fiduciary duty. The duty of care says that you really should try to find the best. You might not get it, but you at least try. But the vast majority of sponsors are using their bundled service providers, so they're not shopping at all. They're just flipping it over to the company that's doing their accounting and record keeping and all that. And the biggest three in that space are Vanguard, Fidelity, and Vanguard. I'm sorry, and T. Rowe Price. Other than that, the glide paths are the critical thing in fiduciary considerations and from the employee's point of view. And if I would show you a drawing, you'd see that for the long dates, for people who are young, the allocations are pretty much the same. They're very clustered. But when you get closer to retirement, there's big disagreement about how much risk to take. And the allocations to equities, this is sort of a risk measure, vary from 10% in equities, which is what I do, all the way up to 75% in equities. Huge range. And I guess I'm going to say some negative things here, although I've been told that I'm not criticizing the target date fund industry, but I am criticizing the way the fund companies have taken advantage of this to package product. So the fact is that the more you are in equities, the more you get paid.
This is true.
Yeah.
You can charge more for equity management.
Sure.
In 2008, there was a big wake-up call for the target date fund industry. The typical target date fund lost 25% in 2008. And if you'll expand the sort of time frame to go 2 months on the other side of that, start the clock at the end of 2007 and go through February of 2009, the typical target date fund lost 30%. And there was a public outcry. It resulted in a joint hearing, the one and only ever joint hearing of the SEC and the DOL in June of 2009. And the notion there was that the regulators are going to get behind this, and this will never happen again, and we're going to require this and require that. Well, here we are 8 years later, 9 years later. Nothing has happened. The only thing that has happened is the risk has increased. And the fees have come down, which is good, but the risk has actually increased. So my patented design at the long dates is as diversified as you can possibly get. It's global stocks, global bonds, global real estate, which is quite a bit different from what the other funds are doing. But most importantly, as the target date gets near, my mission is to defend and preserve the investments of the participant. So when 2008 happened, one thing became clear: the participants had no idea that they could lose a third of their assets.
Wow.
And there's this thing called a risk zone, which spans the transition period from working life to retirement. And related to the risk zone is a concept called sequence of return risk. And it's sort of hard to get your head around this, but for those unfortunate enough to lose money in the risk zone, they will almost, high likelihood that the only way they can react to that is to reduce their standard of living.
Wow. You said it. It's a mouthful. Scary. Ronald Surz, thanks so much. Wish we had more time, but that was terrific stuff. President PPCA. And we're talking about target date solutions there, obviously, with him. Thanks to everybody who listened and participated with this show. Obviously, Ed Baxter, he'll be back with us again tomorrow. David Williams as well. Fish, the producer of this thing. Diamond, great job. Make it a good one. Make it count. I'll see you tomorrow on CEO Money.